hostages, 9 of them Americans, held in these back streets of Beirut. Their families feared added complications.
So many times this has happened to the families where you just hold your breath and say, you know, please God, don't let it affect the hostages.
In Beirut, this demonstration by the pro-Khomeini Hezbollah believed behind most of the kidnappings. And Iranian television was showing what it said was new and massive recruitment of young volunteers. They were shouting, "Death to America." Only 10 days ago, Iranian delegates came to Britain to talk with the Thatcher government. Some saw it as a thaw in Iran's isolation and still hope, despite the crisis, it may continue.
I think the Iranians will be distressed if this incident will in any way affect the warming of relations with Europe.
Tehran's leadership has reason for diplomatic initiatives. Anti-Khomeini Iranian exiles captured 40 tanks in this attack 10 days ago. Among the 1,400 prisoners were young boys and old men, seeming to back up reports that recruiting for the war was getting harder. And after 8 years of fighting Iraq, Iran is beginning to realize there will be no victory. The disaster severely hurts Iran's moderates, particularly Speaker Rafsanjani, who is fighting with more radical mullahs, hoping to end Iran's isolation. But even he, in the rhetoric of the event, declared war on the United States. Tom?
Henry, what are the chances that Speaker Rafsanjani can hang on, however, and hold off the conservatives who probably want some kind of a blood revenge?
Well, I think certainly here in Europe, the leaders expect to see demonstrations. They expect to see those conservatives do what they can at funerals. There's going to be thousands of people shaking their fists and saying death to America. But here they're planning to take the heat and hope that maybe in a couple of weeks they can get back to talking.
Thank you very much. Henry Champ in London tonight. We'll be back with more news in a moment.
Post Fruit and Fiber presents new Cinnamon Apple Crisp and a Fruit and Fiber cereal fanatic who never forgets our name.
Right. Never.
This is the portrait of a killer. Hurricane Gilbert is ashore now just south of Brownsville, Texas, pounding the coast with fierce winds, high tides, and heavy rains. It's the latest chapter in a week-long, 2,000-mile rampage across the Caribbean and Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula that has left at least 50 people dead. Worse, Texas is being hard hit, tornadoes as far east as Alabama. Hurricane Gilbert slammed into land this evening, its eye crossing the Mexican coast, about 110 miles due south of Brownsville, Texas. The storm is packing winds of more than 130 miles an hour. It is expected to continue for quite a while on a west-northwest course. John Blackstone is in South Texas as they face the fury.
With wind and rain and fury, Hurricane Gilbert swept into South Texas. Brownsville, a city of 110,000, seemed deserted, boarded up and braced against the storm. Even before Brownsville felt Gilbert's full force, it was hit by tornadoes spawned by the hurricane's fierce winds.
Everybody seems to be all right over there.
Oh, yeah.
Disaster officials estimated 25,000 people here could end up in emergency shelters. Many low-lying coastal towns have come to accept their fate.
It goes under 3 or 4 times a year, so the people right in here are kind of used to this happening anyway.
Up the coast in Corpus Christi, some were caught in traffic jams as they moved inland. Others stayed close to the coast, seemingly fascinated by the coming storm. In Galveston, further away from Gilbert Center, officials made a controversial decision to evacuate the city of 63,000 last night. But almost half the residents ignored the advice in light of indications Gilbert was not heading directly toward Galveston.
Hey, you worried about the storm? Hell no.
I'd rather make an error towards public safety than make an error and wake up and there are 5,000 lives lost.
But now, uncertainty about Gilbert's destination is gone. As the storm crashes ashore, the uncertainty that remains is the scale of its destruction. John Blackstone, CBS News, Galveston.
There are about 5,000 residents in Port Isabel, a small town near South Padre Island off the Texas coast. As the hurricane approached, police there made efforts to evacuate everybody. Bob McNamara looks at how that went.
While heavy seas and vicious winds battered the evacuated South Padre Island late today, 3 miles away, Port Isabel took a pounding too. But there was another problem here. People who wouldn't leave.
Okay, ma'am.
Like Perry Minicle, trying to phone friends in the howling wind, or at a trailer park where John Miller was staying behind.
Well, I figure if I'm going to go, I can go in a bed in Dallas, Texas. I mean, if I'm going to go. If I'm not going to go, I might as well be here. Yeah. Save me the trip back, you know.
They feel as though that this is their property and they've been here all their life, and why should a storm or anything, for that matter, make them leave?
For the Port Isabel city manager, it would be a long day. Some people not only staying, others trying to return home.
It's really picking up.
The storm is, but what are all these cars doing?
A lot of them want to go back in, check their houses.
But you're not letting them, are you?
No, sir.
Okay.
It is losing the shrimp fishing industry that Port Isabel thrives on that worries this town most. And A.T. Galloway was allowed one last look at his boats.
It'll take care of itself. That's all you can do. Do the best you can and keep your fingers crossed and say a little prayer.
Port Isabel thought itself better prepared to face Hurricane Gilbert than most other Gulf towns. Pleasure boats were stacked in the streets, and the main street since last night has been empty. But as evening and the hurricane-force winds moved closer, concern deepened for those staying with the storm. Police Chief Lorenzo Rosales making one last plea.
Well, because we're getting ready to take off, and we don't want to leave anybody behind, W.
But too proud or stubborn to leave, almost 24 stayed, and now they and the town are alone with the storm. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Port Isabel, Texas.
While the center of the storm was landing on the sparsely populated upper Mexican coast, thousands of Texans already had fled from homes in low-lying areas, turning communities into ghost towns. But in Corpus Christi, correspondent Peter Van Sant found, as usual, some people were prepared to simply stand and wait.
They've been posing for family pictures by the bay and sitting out on their front porches. Corpus Christi residents are ready and waiting for Hurricane Gilbert's fury, but so far it hasn't arrived.
This wind isn't too bad for you?
Oh, hell no. We go through this in the wintertime.
Heavenly Father, we are confident you will grant.
At a nearby church, worshipers gave thanks.
If it does not decide to take a northerly course, I think we will be very blessed.
More than 3,000 people spent the day in shelters, but after hours of calm winds, some headed home.
Thanks a lot for everything. Yes, ma'am.
But most are still worried. They know how quickly the weather can change.
You know, I don't plan on going nowhere. I just plan on staying here until they say it's okay to leave.
Outside of Corpus Christi's sheltered harbor, Hurricane Gilbert is churning up the Gulf. More than 400 homes have been evacuated, and some coastal businesses have been flooded.
This is North Padre Island. All escape routes have now been cut off by rising storm waters. Despite warnings, a number of residents here have decided to stay and try to ride out the storm.
The adventure of it, the fun of it, seeing the storm.
But it could cost your life.
Well, tie myself to a palm tree.
Being down and seeing that water, seeing it break over the seawall down there now, I wouldn't want to be here.
Police have been patrolling evacuated areas amid reports of some scattered looting.
We have had a couple of apprehensions regarding looters. We had 2 last night. We're anticipating some more.
Tonight, a steady downpour has moved into the city, but most Corpus Christi residents believe that this time around, their city has sidestepped disaster. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Corpus Christi, Texas.
CBS News correspondent Faith Daniels has been out and about and checking in Brownsville. I talked with her just a few minutes ago. Faith, I think it's hard for some people to understand how strange and eerie, how come and go hurricanes can be. For example, right now it doesn't look that bad in Brownsville.
No, it really comes in waves. We'll have a strong period of rain and high winds, followed by amazing calm, particularly during the night. It was almost balmy, if you will. Then the winds would start to kick up again, and it would start all over again.
And Faith, among the things you have seen and heard, what impressed you the most? What sticks in your mind the most?
Going into those shelters and seeing those kids, particularly the young ones, not understanding what's going on, sensing the fear and the anxiety on their parents' faces, and not knowing quite how to deal with that. There are 8,000 to 10,000 people in these shelters here. Some of them have crossed the border from Mexico. And especially for the young ones, this is the first time they've been faced with anything like this.
The hurricane's killer winds are not the only threat to life and property. Equally dangerous is the so-called storm surge. That's a phenomenon which can be compared kind of to a tidal wave. The surge is an ocean wave which becomes a sort of moving wall up to 25 feet high. It washes over low-lying land like a bulldozer. The surge is created by the raising of a column of ocean water under the low-pressure eye of the hurricane and by the violent winds swirling right around that eye. Those winds may hold the key to the day's developments. The eye of Gilbert stabbing ashore on the upper Mexican coast just south of Brownsville. Thus, the greatest danger may be in the northern sector, the upper outside part of the hurricane, an area that includes Brownsville. Hurricane winds frequently spawn tornadoes in